right, guys, we're going live. We're just going to wait to make sure that we actually are live. And there we are. And there's our PowerPoint. So good afternoon, or just barely good afternoon. My name is Jamie. I am one of the attorneys here at Student Legal Services, and we're going to be talking to you today about just some general things that new freshmen, new adults, newish adults, all of us should keep in mind or keep track of. Terry, you want to go ahead and introduce yourself?
My name is Terry Ruth. I'm one of the lawyers at Student Legal Services, handling criminal defense and traffic defense.
Okay. And I'm Jamie. I'm one of the attorneys. I do the civil side stuff. So your landlord tenant, consumer, name changes, uncontested divorces, simple wills, a little bit of everything. And Terry does two things, and that keeps him really busy, and the rest of us do a little bit of everything. Just a little bit more about our office to get started, if PowerPoint wants to work. There we go. We are free for students. So as long as you're enrolled in classes, you have a free attorney for you. Again, landlord tenant, consumer, traffic tickets, most criminal, name changes, wills, etc. We do not handle stuff against UCF, the state of Florida, other UCF students, because all students can be clients. No student conduct stuff, and a few other things for that. So I'm going to go ahead and get started into the presentation. If you have questions during the course of the presentation, there is the chat. Because I'm sharing the screen today, I have to kind of go back and forth to look at it. But I will periodically check to see if there's any questions, and Terry and I will do our best to answer any of those for you. So put them in the chat. If not, during the presentation, I'll at least maybe try to check afterwards and see if there's anything there. So I'm going to go ahead and get into it. So the first thing we're going to start off with is that I think sometimes people think that when they're asked to sign something, they might have time to get out of it. So we'll frequently see someone sign a lease and they think, well, my lease isn't supposed to start for 8-9 months. I might be able to get out of it. And that's not true. When you sign a contract, from the moment you ink your signature on it, with a few exceptions, you're bound to that contract. Door-to-door sales, there's like a 72-hour cooling off period if someone comes to your door to try to sell you something, as that's seen as a high pressure situation. The contract itself might have a way to get out. We don't see that super often, except in leases, and there's usually a penalty. So a lot of times in a lease, there'll be a provision to opt in to a like liquidated damages is what they call it. So it's usually 2 months of rent, and there might be a notice period. So sometimes it's like, I have to give you 60 days of notice, pay rent during that 60-day period, and then pay another 2 months of rent. So it's like a 4-month penalty. The trend has been for less notice, but you have to know what you're signing. If you're signing a lease and there is one of those, we do recommend that you opt in. Or another legal basis like duress, but that's really rare. A lot of people feel like, well, I was under pressure and that's duress, and a lot of times it's not. It has to be like gun to your head sort of situation for that. So a lot of this is really important to remember, and we're seeing that a lot with COVID right now is because people were asked to sign leases, renewals back in October, November, maybe when we were just starting to hear inklings of something going on in China. And they renewed, and maybe they're staying at home or some other situation has come up, and it happens every year regardless. They're like wanting out of the lease, and it's difficult if you're in that situation. Every situation is different. We're just here talking about some general stuff today, but if there is a situation that you find yourself in, give us a call, consult with one of our attorneys, and we'll be able to give you your options. But it's just important to really think, if you're being asked to sign something, think really carefully about what you sign before you do it, because those contracts are binding. The second thing I want to hit on is auto insurance. This is a big thing that we see with students, and the minimum. And I'm sure you hear this, Terry, with sometimes some of the traffic certificate stuff is that they start getting worried about insurance. Terry doesn't handle the insurance part of us on the civil side do. But if you just have the bare minimum to keep your registration current, which is 10,000 of property damage and 10,000 of personal injury protection, that's probably not enough. We go into this more. If you go to our Facebook page, we first started doing some of our presentations over there, and it's saved under our videos. So it's just UCF Student Legal on Facebook. We did a whole presentation of all the civil attorneys on insurance where we go more in depth as to like the types of coverage and why the minimum's not enough. But there are lots of situations where if you just have that, property damage protects other people's vehicles. Personal injury protection protects you if you have injuries. There can be a lot of situations where you won't have enough insurance, or if you do get into an accident, it's your fault and you cause injuries to someone else, your license can be suspended. You can get sued if the other party has insurance that pays for their injuries, or other stuff that you didn't have enough insurance or didn't have coverage to pay for. If you get into a wreck, you don't have collision coverage and it's your fault, you won't be able to get any coverage for your vehicle. There's just all sorts of scenarios where the bare minimum is not enough. I think that's in life. A lot of times the minimum is not enough. And this is where we can really see some very high numbers of stuff that is really devastating for students and that they might file bankruptcy on. For example, I have a client right now who was in an auto accident, was at fault. The other party had really good insurance, and the person alleges that they were injured. So their other insurance company, I'm just going to say it's Geico. It's not, but we'll just throw Geico under the bus. Geico paid out their insured for their injuries, and now Geico is coming after my client to get reimbursed because they didn't have enough insurance. And most people don't have 29,000, 17,000. I saw one case where there were 3 other people in the vehicle and they all alleged injuries, and this other person must have really, really good insurance. It was like $150,000. Most people are just not going to be able to pay that, and that's just really going to put you in a really bad financial bind. And if you don't own your vehicle, your parents own your vehicle, also them, because the owner of the vehicle, as well as the driver, is responsible for anything that happens with that vehicle. Also, if you don't have coverage and you aren't at a fault, but you're hit, like 25% of drivers in Florida allegedly don't even have insurance. So you would be in a situation with no coverage there too if you didn't have collision. So like I said, that Facebook Live has a lot more information if that's something you're interested in. We also have some information on our website. All that stuff, at least our website, is linked down below in the description bar, and you can go check that out. Keep an eye on your credit. That's the next one I'm going to go on, or can cost you. We do have a presentation coming up in the fall in November. I don't recall the date off the top of my head, where we will be partnering with Sensible Nights. Sorry about the dog. He's doing his house wolf thing. Our neighbors just pulled in. Um, we will be doing a presentation with Sensible Nights about credit in general, but also credit and how it affects employment prospects. So a lot of people have errors on their report. You can have stuff that you paid that somehow by accident ends up in collections. A lot of times it's a family member who has a similar name, but maybe you're the third and they're, junior, and some of their stuff can end up on your report by accident. If you have a really common name, so John Smith, or could end up with someone's stuff that's not yours on your report. So we recommend that you check it often because it can have those impacts on employment. It also can have an impact on your ability to rent. It might mean that you have to pay more money for a security deposit or several months rent up front. Financing, your interest rates will be higher if you can even get financing. I've seen car loans as high as like 18% for people with not great credit. So it's all of that sort of stuff. And in certain industries, it definitely affects your ability to get employment. So if you're going into the finance field or law enforcement or anything like that, you might not get the job because credit ultimately is seen as a risk of how risky you are. It's a reflection of the risk you are. So if you're going into finance where you might be handling large accounts of money, one, you might be risky to maybe, man, I've got all these bills. I don't know what I'm doing. I'm so stressed out. I'm overwhelmed. Collectors are calling me all the time. You might be, maybe will pocket some money. I don't know if that's true or not, but that's how they look at it. Or you might take a bribe if you're in law enforcement. Leasing, so landlord tenant stuff is probably the number one way that we see stuff that ends up on people's credit. So sign a lease and not moving in, moving out early, damages after you move out. So those are all things to keep your eye on and be aware of. And if you do end up in a landlord tenant situation, which might lead to something like that, come and see us. We're open. We are seeing people. Terry's been going to court. I have court coming up, so things are slower than normal, but things are still open and we're here. We never shut down. We're still seeing people. I had 4 appointments this morning, so we're still here doing stuff. So let me check. No questions that I see so far. Again, if you have a question, just put it in the chat. We'll try to get to it. Document everything. This is a really good thing to do. Pretty much probably across the board for criminal and civil, but you move into a place, document the condition. Move out, same. Landlords love to charge you for things, video. I'm a huge proponent of video. Hi, my name is Jamie. I'm at 123 Main Street. I'm moving in August 1st. I just want to do a walkthrough and save it, keep it in the cloud, hang on to it. Same thing. Hi, my name is Jamie. I'm moving out of 123 Main Street. Is July 31st. I'm getting ready to turn in the keys. Let me walk you through. It's so important. I've had clients save a bunch of money doing that because if you don't do it, as he said, she said, you pay a bill, pay in a trackable way. Don't pay in cash unless you get a receipt. It's not trackable. People can say you didn't pay. Money orders can be tricky too. And so a lot of landlords or other people you deal with, they don't want cash money or they don't want a personal check for whatever reason. And let's face it, most of us don't have checks anymore or only a handful. So we just don't pay in that way. And you can get free money orders at Amscot, but they do hundreds of thousands of money orders every single day. And if you don't keep the stub or a picture of it or something like that and it gets lost, or they say they never got the money, it's impossible to track unless you keep that. So we highly recommend that. Billing dispute, keep track of who you've talked to and when. Get agreements in writing. If you can't, and there's the legend in law school or the legal circles, it can be on a cocktail napkin. It really can. Just as long as it's filled out and you both sign it and date it, it really can be that way. So it doesn't have to be anything fancy to make a contract. But I guess the question, if it's a cocktail napkin, if you were intoxicated, were you actually consenting to the contract? That might go back to my first point about it's binding and there might be very few ways you can get out of it. But, do that. If you can't get it in writing just because it's verbal over the phone or you're not together or something like that, I like the confirming email. So this is a good tip for anything like, hey, per our conversation on July 7th, at so-and-so time, this is what I understand. I'm going to do, X, you're going to do Y, and this is what's going to happen. If my understanding is wrong or this is incorrect, let me know within 48 hours. It's not as good as having an agreement in writing, but at least it shows that you are, that was some sort of meeting of the minds, which is a basic element of contract law, is that you guys have to have some sort of meeting of the agreement. So it's at least something to show that that's what you've agreed to. Terry, you want to take over? Can you see it? I think you're muted, Terry. Hold on. There you go.
Yeah, I can see it. Okay. I have it pulled up here on the computer.
Okay, so I had moved things around a little, a little bit to put all the civil together. So we're at not everything this looks like a ticket is a ticket.
Yeah, this is a reference to what police will call a notice to appear, or also it's a written arrest. You'll get these sometimes or most times for underage possession of alcohol, which is typically at tailgates. So hopefully, we not only have football season, but we also have tailgates this year. So those are the most common things for that. What they are is a police officer sees you with alcohol, which is typically, a can or a bottle. Usually they won't with a solo cup, but if they see you with a can of Bud Light or a White Claw, and you appear
the claw is
the law. Underage. What's that?
The claw is the law.
The claw is the law.
I guess it's very popular.
Right.
Don't drink underage, kids.
Good tip. But if they see you with one of those and you, quote, appear to be under the age of 21, that'll give them enough, quote, reasonable suspicion where they can walk up and start talking to you and ask you for identification. Not saying you have it is not going to get you out of it. Mm-hmm. Likely what will happen is they'll take it, throw it away, assuming you're underage, and give you a notice to appear. The notice to appear will then have a court date on it. Orange County, you're no longer allowed to just pay those, which is a good thing. Some counties, I think, still allow for you to pay it. You can also get these for shoplifting.
They still do it for marijuana?
Yeah, not for misdemeanors. Almost never.
Are you just getting? Occasionally. You just see civil fines now for those?
Yeah.
Or?
Yeah. Usually we won't even see them, but
yes.
For the most part, they're not prosecuting them, at least in Orange County. They are sometimes if they're attached to other crimes, but usually not just that. But the importance of it is a criminal offense. So it does have legal implications. Depending on what job or degree you're going into, what field, you'll likely have to account for this. So you're going to want to be careful. You're going to want to consult with a lawyer. Legal services, like Jamie said, is free. You can come just talk to us, even if you just want to bounce ideas off of or find out the implications of the choice that you already think you're going to make. Just go ahead and do that. We can help you walk through it and even represent you at no charge. Because like I said, they do have lasting implications, even something minor as holding a White Claw. The other thing in here is if you're underage and you get pulled over and the police suspect you of drinking, but you've had the famous 1 beer or 2 beers, you do fine on their sobriety exercises that they request that you perform. They can still issue you what's called a .02 suspension if they have reason to believe that you're drinking and that you're underage, under 21. They'll have you blow, or they'll request that you blow into a portable breathalyzer. And if you blow over a .02, they issue you an administrative suspension. Now, that's different from a DUI. So in order for them to do that, they have to make a determination that you're not a quote DUI, meaning that you're not impaired. So even if you're fine, you can still get an administrative alcohol suspension on your driver's license because you're underage and you're consuming alcohol illegally. Now, with that, and also with any type of arrest, including a written arrest, you're likely going to get referred, especially around campus and on campus, to student conduct. And so you're going to have to deal with those problems also, violation of the golden rule, and go through that process.
UCF PD is required to refer it to conduct, even if they don't arrest you. If they decline to, bust you for possession of a small amount of marijuana, they can still they still have to refer it to student conduct. Some of our other agencies will do it, especially like Terry said, if it's around campus. So when they set up the big stings at Knight's Pub, if that ever reopens or anything like that, they know you guys are likely college students, and then you'll be doing that in addition to whatever else you might have to deal with on the criminal side. And we don't represent, again, in those student conduct cases. I think sometimes Terry has had to be the bringer of bad news to let people know, like, hey, you're going to hear from conduct. But, keep that in mind, too, that's something that can come up to. And I didn't put examples in here, but a lot of these, they look a lot like a traffic ticket. So, keep your eye out. And if it has the option to pay, we caution you to pay it because you might be admitting to stuff that you wouldn't necessarily want to admit to. You might not be able to expunge it like you might be able to if you didn't pay the fine. You might only be able to seal, which could have consequences depending on what you're going into in the future. So keep that in mind.
Yeah, your best bet if you get something like this is to come and talk to us. Even if it's from a different county in Florida, from South Florida, anywhere in Florida, just come talk to us just so we can explain what the implications are and what your options are. Another thing is Jamie brought up Knight's Pub, which will hopefully be booming again.
Yeah. Do you want to talk about that with the fake
yeah.
ID? Okay, I think that's next. Yep. Don't fake it.
Don't fake it. Don't fake it as a reference to fake IDs so that you can get it, they usually let people into the bar, but you won't be able to buy drinks unless you are over 21. So sometimes people will get a fake ID. And then sometimes police will raid these places, find out how you got a bracelet, how you determined that you were over 21, and because you have a drink and you're under 21, you've admitted it, or they've run your license, and then they find your other license that says you are 21, that is either manufactured, which is a felony, a third-degree felony, if it's a manufactured license or identification, or if it's someone that has a likeness to you that's actually a real license, that's only a misdemeanor. Both are criminal offenses, and both will get you into trouble. Recommend you don't do either. But there's definitely a difference.
Is underage possession better than a fake ID?
Well, they're the same essentially.
Yeah.
Sometimes depending on the officers, they'll charge you with sometimes they won't. They'll just confiscate them. But usually they will report everything to student conduct. So it'll be a part of it all. And student conduct and some of these things, especially DUIs, come down very hard on students. And police, hopefully when we open and the campus is bristling again, police always make it a point in the first few weeks to send messages to students that to attempt to curtail underage drinking, and especially impaired driving. They try to make a lot of arrests and pull people over that they suspect of that. And it is devastating to especially a new student who just gets there, just signs a lease, just enrolls, and all of a sudden has to get bonded out of jail, deal with the cost of a DUI, deal with the criminal implications, the problem with their record, career. In addition, a lot of times student conduct will say, well, we're going to suspend you for a while. And so then you got to lose you're going to move out of school. You got to lose that money. Your lease has problems. It's just a devastating effect. So be very cognizant. There's no need for that with all the different Ubers and Lyfts.
Yeah, and I know sometimes UCFPD will put on their social media like, hey guys, we're going to be partnering with Orange County Sheriff's Office on Alafaya, which runs, for any of you guys who aren't really familiar with campus yet, runs right on the edge of campus. And we're going to be doing a DUI bust or on University, which runs into campus. And that's where a lot of these pubs and quote unquote college bars are at. So it's out there, they tell you. And there's just, if you're a student, SGA does offer some free Lyft rides, I believe. If you go to the ticket center, you can learn more about that. But like, it's $10, guys, like, $10, $15, it's worth it. Even if you're, when things open back up and you're out at the theme parks, you went to Halloween Horror Nights, you had too much to drink, get a tow, take an Uber, come back. Cause it's just, a DUI costs what, $10,000, Terry?
Easily.
Yeah. So it can be devastating. And then you might not be part of our community for a semester or two if conduct gets involved. So we want you here. We don't want you to face these things. We know mistakes happen. I know I've made mistakes as far as drinking goes. So, just be careful, try to make a good decision. And never give a cop your fake ID, right, Terry?
Yeah, absolutely not.
Not going to go well.
No.
And don't put it in the same spot as your real ID in your wallet, right?
Don't have one.
Yeah, well, yeah. Well, yes. Number one, don't have one. Number two is, sometimes the way people get caught is they go fumble in their wallet and they have IDs.
That's most times.
But multiple. So slow down.
Right. Slow down. especially early on, officers will sit there, especially UCF PD will sit there on the side. They know where their open stretch is on campus that students usually go above the speed limit, and they'll ticket as many people as they can that are speeding or any other traffic offenses in an attempt to send the message again. So campus is not a good time to speed. There's a ton of officers and it's not that big. So there's plenty of them all over the place. So be very careful and obey all the traffic, the U-turn, the no U-turn signs, everything like that come to complete stops.
Stop for pedestrians and walkways.
Right. Give no reasons to A, pull you over, B, write you a ticket. And if you do get pulled over, you can certainly tell the officer, if he accuses or she accuses you of something, you can tell them your side of the story, but just be cognizant of respectful, courteous, because chances are the officer, it's difficult to change an officer's mind once they made it up at the side of the road. They want to be just done with the ticket. Typically, you're not able to change the officer's mind at the side of the road with a traffic ticket. And the only real place is in court with the judge or hearing officer to do that, especially if the officer is wrong. Sometimes they don't even know they're wrong. And if you explain them they're wrong, all of a sudden they get out this tint meter and start doing windows and just it kind of goes back to earlier, take notes, go through it, and then come see us. And then so we can prepare your defense in court and help you out that way.
Just insurance, you can't get, your insurance rate won't go up for a ticket unless it's over 15 miles an hour over the speed limit, or you get 2 and 18 months. And you can only take the class 5 times, right, Terry?
Yeah, you can take it once a year up to 5 times in your life. That's the traffic school option that guarantees no points.
And then don't argue with the cop. That's kind of what Terry was talking about earlier. And we know this is kind of a sensitive topic and one that we're cognizant of and aware of. And we know that you can do everything right in an interaction with a police officer, and things might not go the way we want them to. And really what we're just trying to do is less maximize the likelihood that you're going to have a good encounter, that you're going to walk away with as few charges as possible. So you're just going to get that speeding ticket and not a tint ticket, not having a plate frame, not, all the other things that are little things that cops can write a citation for. If you get, with that. So, we know that sometimes it just doesn't matter what you do. But to the extent that, don't argue with the cop, be courteous.
Right. And that doesn't mean do everything the officer says, hey, I want to search your car. You certainly do not have to do that and probably should not do that.
Yeah.
If they ask for consent, chances are they don't have probable cause. You can just say no respectfully. If they start accusing you of different crimes, you can always say, I'd like to talk to my lawyer. If you're not in the car and you come with a police officer and you feel like they're questioning you and you don't want it anymore, you say, am I free to leave? That's important, because at that point, legally, the officer has to decide whether or not he's got sufficient cause to detain you. If he doesn't, you can just walk away.
And one thing we just say, be polite, be calm. We know you're mad. Sometimes you're like, oh, darn it, they got me. I know I've been that way. I know in a few places, not on campus, but in the area, there are some cars that they pull you over in that don't necessarily look like police cars. So if you're not sure, you could put on your flashers, slow down, call 911. And the dispatcher will verify that that is a legitimate police officer. There's like a dark F-150 that I see. It's a cop, but you wouldn't necessarily think it's a cop.
Yeah, I
And
know that officer.
yeah. Has he gotten some of your clients?
Yes, he's like on the aggressive driving. We
Yeah,
only pull over aggressive drivers.
I see it a lot on 417 on my commute.
Yeah.
So, and there's actually a few that I see on 417 regularly. They're on our toll roads quite a bit because yeah,
especially the 408. The 408 is
so easy to speed.
It's easy to speed. It's wide and it changes speed limit quite a bit. So just be very careful.
Yeah, so easy to speed on 408. I mean, so many times I've looked down and been like, oh,
right.
No.
And going with the flow of traffic is not a defense.
If it's nighttime, pull over in a well-lit area, try to get off the road the best you can. That's just for safety for you not being hit, the officer not being hit. Keep your hands visible. If it's nighttime, turn on the light in the car so it's well lit. The officer could see everything that's going on. A police stop, a traffic stop is one of the most dangerous situations for an officer historically to be in. So they've got that baggage coming with them when they come to your window. And I don't know if officers are doing this too much anymore, Terry. You might know our callbacks where they will ask you to come back to their car, which they can do as a safety thing.
They can. Some will do that. Yeah.
So you get out of your car and you bring them your license and registration and proof of insurance. So that is lawful. They can do that. So that's that. And then I think the next one is be overly cautious. I think sometimes the law is broader than you think. And DUIs can happen even when you're not driving.
Yeah, DUIs, I've seen these, as a defense attorney and as a prosecutor where the person thinks that they're doing, quote, the right thing. They're driving, or they come out of the bar and they're going to sleep it off, and they'll put the air on and go to sleep. Okay. The law says that you're guilty of DUI if you're driving or, quote, an actual physical control of a vehicle while you're impaired. Now, being in the driver's seat with the keys in the ignition is definitely considered an actual physical control, the same as driving as far as the law is concerned. So you can get a DUI that way. You can get suspended. If your license is suspended, you can get charged with that. So you can get charged with that, being in actual physical control of it.
Now, so what do you recommend?
What we recommend is put the keys in the glove box, sleep in the back seat, that stuff, so that you need to take a couple steps before you can drive away. And then you should have no problem. And then the possession, I've also had many cases where, a group is going to tailgate and some of the people are under 21, but they're all carrying stuff. Someone's carrying a case of beer. The officer says, "Hey, let me see some ID." And you're like, "I'm just helping them carry this and set it up." They don't care. It doesn't matter. You're sole control of that. You can get charged with it.
Have you seen the cooler one in a while?
No, as far as, what do you mean? Like you reach your hand in the cooler and you grab?
Yeah, wasn't that a thing? Well, if you were out tailgating or somewhere and you had a cooler with mixed non-alcoholic and alcoholic drinks, if you put your hand into the cooler to grab, let's say, Coke, but there's Bud Light there. Sometimes I knew at least at one time.
Real careful, because if you grab something by accident, or if you're holding on to someone's drink while they run to the bathroom. That's somehow the officers have a sixth sense for that, because a lot of people have those stories, and they don't care. And they may even believe you that you're just holding it for them. Unfortunately, the law is you're still guilty. So just don't do that. Be careful where you put your drink down, because it can also implicate where you pick your drink up from. Just be aware if other people in either your tailgate tent or your group are drinking, be aware of where your drink is in relation to the alcohol.
Yeah, just it's a good idea maybe just to have 2 coolers, or
yes,
keep your drink separate, to keep all your stuff separate, yeah, in a normal course of things, a lot of times stuff like this wouldn't happen. But if you're at a tailgating event, or you're at one of these college bars or other places where they know there's underage drinking, for example, I mentioned Halloween Horror Nights because one time when I was there, I was waiting for friends, and I saw someone who a middle-aged mom type, bust out a badge and, was undercover, and started asking for some IDs. So they're out there at places you're going to be, and they're watching for that. And that's what they're there to do. I mean, that's their purpose of being there, is to prevent DUIs and underage drinking, and marijuana use and all the other stuff that they look for. So they're looking for it.
And all these things, all these problems, all these tickets or written arrests will affect your education, and will in fact affect your applications and job prospects and career. So keep that in mind. You're spending a lot and doing a lot of work towards that. Do not derail it with one stupid decision.
And talk less. I know for me, when I'm on the civil side, there is nothing more that I like to have happen than like the other party just start rambling on, because they're almost always going to tell me something they didn't want to tell me, or they probably should not have told me. And so don't volunteer a lot of information necessarily if you're in a situation, regardless of whether it's civil or criminal. Terry will probably talk more about what your rights are, but, talk less.
I mean, for the vast majority, Jamie's right. Invoke your right to remain silent. For the most part, if the police are talking to you about a crime or some sort of problem that they're hinting strongly or actually just accusing you of, they're just trying to get a confession out of you, trying to get you to further implicate yourself. You have the right just to remain silent. You can always say, I'd like to talk to an attorney. Not in every case, but for the most part, do that. Jamie's right. You'll generally only harm yourself.
Yeah, but blah, 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 blah. Yeah, you're gonna,
right.
You might think that you're a fast talker, but even really good cons usually say something that they should not have in the course of talking to people. And in my experience of being an attorney over a decade, I've run into some pretty good cons, but they usually, if they talk too much, you find something out you shouldn't have known, or they should not have said. That's, usually a lot of times that's the way people end up getting implicated, is that they confess.
Right.
That's how they get themselves into it.
Right. And sometimes the officer wants to talk to you because they don't have enough evidence. And that's the only reason they're talking to you, to try to get the evidence.
And they can lie. People think, oh, a police officer can't lie to me. Yeah, they can. They can say. And we used to have an officer do some presentations with us, and he would say that he would sometimes joke around with people like, oh, can I search your car? And then he wouldn't when they said yes. But then one time he actually would. So we usually recommend, I think Terry alluded to it earlier, not consenting to warrantless searches.
Yeah, because sometimes, they'll search your car and throw everything around, in total disarray, even if you've done nothing wrong, have nothing in your car. All of a sudden now you just have a huge mess in your car. For what? Because the officer, just to appease the officer's, unfounded suspicion that there might be something illegal in there, you have the right to say no. In that case, I would definitely always use it.
And we all have that one friend, at least I did when I was, probably more than one when I was in college, who God only knows what they left in your car. And y'all know who I'm talking about, that friend. Or, if you have a used car, who knows what, they could find in there. I'm not really in the habit of deep cleaning my car on a regular basis. Maybe some of you guys are. But a passenger could have left something in my car and I wouldn't even know it. So it's usually a good idea. They can bring the drug dog out, right, though, Terry?
Yeah, they can bring the drug dog out if they, suspect for whatever reason, or they want to search your car, they ask for consent and you say no. They can then call for the canine. The canine has to arrive there in a reasonable period of time, which is 20 minutes typically. And then the canine can walk around and see if they alert, although all of that is confusing right now and gray with medical marijuana, and how that will work. That hasn't really flushed out yet in the court system, but yes, they can call the canines.
How long? 20 minutes, right?
20 minutes, correct.
Yeah. And if you're on campus and you're talking about the UCF PD, they do have a number of dogs. It was 3. I think it might be more now.
They'll be there. They'll be there within 5 minutes.
Yeah. So there's usually a canine officer on duty. I think it's more now because there's one downtown with the new downtown campus.
Yeah.
So, they can be there pretty quickly. And that can happen. So keep that in mind with your sketchy friends too. If you're driving,
Right.
that can be something that comes up. I think we're wrapping up here. So I haven't seen any questions. If you wanted to, you could try to put a real quick question and we'll try to get to it. Again, we're open. Terry is meeting with people. I'm meeting with people. We're doing it all virtual online, mostly via phone, but we can do some Zoom appointments as well. Or otherwise, if you need an accommodation, otherwise just let us know. So, we're here. All of our contact info is in the description box down below, or you can just search UCF Student Legal Services. You'll find us. And, we're here for you. We're free. I mean, there's not really very many opportunities you'll have in your life where you can speak to an attorney for free when you have a situation. So we really encourage you to come see us. On the civil side, there's 3 of us. So you usually can meet with someone within maybe 1 business day, maybe 2 when we're super busy or people are out. Terry right now has more availability than usual because of court not being in session, but usually he takes longer. So if you do get a traffic ticket, don't wait until the last minute.
You only have 30 days. So the sooner the better.
So, call, get set up with Terry, and, he'll tell you what to do. I mean, we only represent in counties where we have a campus, but we can advise on law in Florida. Now, there's county by county differences. So the way things are done in Orange County are not the way things are done in Seminole County. So we're not familiar with all of those, but we can at least advise you on what the law is and try to point you in the right direction, even if it's not a county. So if you're back home, you're taking all online classes in the fall, and you're going to go see friends or go to the grocery store, and you get pulled over and get a ticket, you definitely can still contact us for some advice.
Absolutely.
Any final thoughts or wisdom you wanted to?
No, if they do have questions, just call us and we'll go through their particular situation.
Mm-hmm.
And if something happened in the past, we also offer sealing and expungements. We can go through that too.
Yeah, actually, all the attorneys do sealing and expungements. It's the only criminal stuff I do, um, besides some presentation stuff. So, it's usually pretty quick. That process is a long process, though. It takes about a year. So, if you maybe had something happen when you were a Valencia student um, or Seminole State, and now you're at UCF and you want to see if you can get that sealed or expunged, the sooner you start, the better. Because otherwise it might not wrap up until after you've graduated and already had to enter the employment purposes. If we start it before you graduate, we'll finish it, but we have very little control over how much time it takes. It's part of the process. So, all right, don't see any questions that have come in. So thank you guys for joining us today. We are here for you. Again, we're free for our services. If you end up owing a fine for traffic or something like that, unfortunately, we can't cover that, but we don't charge you anything for us. And we're here and open. If you have any questions afterwards, you can leave them below and try to point you in the right direction. But really, give us a call, make an appointment, and we'll be able to answer the questions directly to your specific situation that you're in, and we're happy to do that.
All right. Well, thank you, Jamie.
Thank you.